Welcome back, MRN's Wing Nation, presented by Sage Fruit here on MAV TV. Love when one of our drivers joins us in studio, particularly when he's a Chili Bowl champion, the reigning champ. Christopher Bell's here. Hey, man, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great.
Good, good. I know you always look forward to talking sprint car racing, and we'll do that, but there's also this little NASCAR thing that's going. Congratulations, man. You're off to a great start to the year in the Truck Series.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic year. Since I made the switch to crew chief Rudy Fugle, it's been pretty great ever since the start of the year.
Well, no doubt, no doubt. You know, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, and we talked to a lot of sprint car drivers that work with the transition to go to NASCAR racing, and there's a lot of frustration because you can't wrestle the car. Really, the job in NASCAR is to work with the crew chief to tune the truck up. How are you doing with that? Not being able to throw the car in on the cushion or do all the things that a sprint car driver does. How are you adapting to that of more tuning the car as much as anything else?
So I feel like that's been a big improvement for myself over the course from last year to this year, is just my driver feedback. I've learned that feedback is everything. Whenever you go to a sprint car race, the crew chiefs have the beneficial or benefactor, whatever, of watching the car go around the racetrack, because typically you can stand right on the fence and it's a short racetrack. You watch the car and you can see what the car is doing. Well, whenever you go NASCAR race and you go to a place like Texas, Kansas, any of these mile-and-a-halves, the crew chiefs can't see anything. They're sitting on top of the hauler in the middle of the infield, and you're a mile away, and they can maybe watch you go down the straightaway, but you can't learn anything there. So what they have to go off of, especially in the Truck Series, whenever we don't have data a lot, is what you tell them. So what you tell your crew chief, that's what they're working on. So that's why your feedback has to be so important.
It is amazing. It is amazing. Is it frustrating at time when you have an ill-handling truck that you can't just go up and find the cushion, hook the bottom, do all of that? Is that frustrating, though, as a sprint car driver?
It is, because that's one thing that sprint car racing is so unique, is that there's so many different lines and so many different grip levels in the racetrack. You can typically find something that'll get you around the racetrack fairly good. Whenever you go NASCAR racing, you pretty much got what you got. So it's really important to utilize those practice sessions, utilize your feedback, and make sure that you're telling your crew chief everything.
The races in NASCAR, you know, I'm kind of a short track guy where, you know, I mean, man, you have a 40-lap feature. That's an eternity into it. How have you adapted? Are you ever riding around out there in the truck saying, my gosh, is this thing ever going to end? How have you adapted to the length of the races?
So the length of the races has probably been one of the hardest things for me to get used to as a sprint car driver. And it kills me, like we were at Gateway last weekend and the big scoring pylon's right on the inside of the racetrack. So every time you go by there, you're like, oh, 141, oh, 140, and it just ticks down so slow. But if you can't see the lap counter, it typically goes by a lot faster. But yeah, the longer distance races have been the hardest part to get used to.
Final NASCAR question before we talk about sprint car racing. I had a chance, and you're working in the Xfinity Series a little bit. How is and I know you're still new at it, very new at it, racing at Charlotte and racing a few more times throughout the course of the year. How has that gone for you, getting your arms around the Xfinity program, and how different is it? Is it drastically different from the Truck Series?
So the trucks and the Xfinity cars have similarities. The biggest difference that there is the aerodynamics. So whenever you go truck racing, it almost relates a lot to sprint car racing, wing sprint car racing, because you have a lot of grip whenever you're by yourself, but then whenever you get in traffic, you don't have very much grip. Whereas the Xfinity cars, you have less grip by yourself or less downforce, and then whenever you get in traffic, there's less of a gap there. You don't lose as much as you do in the trucks. So as far as motors, they have really similar motors. I think they're the same motors, so that's the same. Tires are generally similar. So there's a lot of similarities there, but the aerodynamics are totally different.
Now I know why I like the truck so much. I really do, as a sprint car guy. That's fascinating.
Donnie Schatz would make a hell of a truck racer.
Oh, well, Donnie Schatz will probably make a hell of any racer.
That's
yeah, indeed. Indeed. Hey, we're going to step away right now, but a little bit more. We talked about NASCAR. Now we're going to talk about sprint car racing and a whole lot more coming up in just a moment with Christopher Bell. Welcome back. It is MRN's Wing Nation, presented by Sage Fruit here on MAV TV. Just having a great time talking with Christopher Bell. And we got the NASCAR stuff out of the way. In the last segment, let's talk a little bit about sprint car racing. You certainly don't get to do as much as I know you'd love to do. How do you follow along nowadays with sprint car? Are you one of those like the rest of us, dirt vision, racing boy, loving the cushion kind of guys now?
Oh yeah, anytime I love those broadcast networks, man. They do a great job covering the races, and anytime they got a broadcast, I'm there tuned in.
You know, I kind of think it's amazing, and you're rather young. I'm obviously a generation or two ahead of you as far as that goes, but it is amazing what we can sit in Gateway or Texas or Iowa and follow along. We're really spoiled rotten on the sprint car coverage now by a lot of great pay-per-view providers and people covering this sport.
It's awesome, man. It's cool. We're able to watch races, and I feel like that's what sprint car racing needs to help get its launch to more nationally known people, I guess.
Yeah, indeed, it is, and it really is. It's fascinating to watch. We've got a really good thing going with that. Okay, so you're sitting there, you're watching a race. Are you one of those guys that's critiquing everybody along the way? I know it's weird. I do it, and then I say, wait a minute, I've never sat in a sprint car. How am I to question what he's doing? Are you, when you're watching it, are you questioning what's going on and who's doing what and what's doing different things?
Well, I'll tell you what, after watching the last couple here at Eagle, the last Outlaw race, and then last night's All-Star race, you kind of wonder why everyone doesn't do what Kyle Larson's been doing. But he's been fantastic and fun to watch.
Is that not amazing? And he's a friend of yours, he's a friend of our show, he's a friend of everybody. Not amazing the amount of talent he has, and to be able, I think talent is great, but to be able to adapt to different things, that's something that's very rare.
So I got the opportunity to run Wayne County Speedway for the first time in a long time earlier this year, and I feel like the track conditions were fairly similar. And watching what Kyle did last night at Wayne County and knowing what I went through there, it's just unbelievable to see how he's able to drive the car on edge right up against the fence and make it look so effortless.
It is amazing. It really is. As far as sprint car racing goes, and of course you're running the Truck Series full time and climbing that ladder as Kyle has done, as Ricky Stenhouse has done, as a lot of you guys, as Tony has done. Are you actively seeking rides? Are you still looking for rides in sprint cars? I know you've ran a little bit of midget racing, a little bit of sprint cars this year, but what's coming up? Do you have some things, or are you job hunting?
So I've got a lot of holes in my schedule. The Truck Series is fairly back heavy on the scheduling.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of the year, I was able to run a lot of midget races, some sprint car races, and now we go into July and August where I have a lot of off weekends where I'm able to run sprint cars, but I don't really have any rides right now. So definitely putting some feelers out there, trying to get something put together. I'll be at the Kings Royal. That'll be a fun weekend for me. But other than that, I don't really have anything going.
Wow, so the Kings Royal coming up. So, hey, team owners, if you're looking for someone, dial up Christopher Bell. I mean, he might be able to wheel a race car pretty good. A little bit of a skill there, that's for sure. Christopher, we've seen, obviously, and we mentioned Tony, Ricky, Kyle Larson, Casey Kane, their role in sprint car racing. It's a ways down the road. You're still growing your NASCAR career, but 4 or 5 years from now, what would you like your role in sprint car racing to be?
I'd love to have a car. I've kind of pondered putting a car together for myself here over the last couple of months, but unfortunately I'm not in the time or situation to do that right now. But definitely looking forward, my goal would be to have a sprint car team. I feel like that's kind of every sprint car driver's goal once they get to NASCAR, is to be able to support the sport that gave the opportunity to us. So that's my dream. That's my goal. Hopefully I'll be able to continue that on.
You know, there's so much. We do a lot. We do the wing stuff. We're obviously Wing Nation and everything. Would it be a wing sort of sprint car that you prefer, or would you prefer more a midget type situation or a USAC thing? What's kind of your preference where you think you would like to be with that, if you do that?
So I'm glad you asked that question, because always in my head how I feel like I made it to NASCAR, how Larson made it to NASCAR, was the ability to be successful in multiple cars. So I've always kind of had this dream to have one team, one crew chief, one driver, and all sorts of cars. Carry a midget, a Silver Crown in the top of the trailer, a wing sprint car down there, and hit the road. Let's go race. Friday night a midget race, Saturday night the Silver Crowns are at Williams Grove, and then Sunday we can hit Port Royal on the way out or something.
Wow.
That's kind of my dream scenario. It'd be cool to see, and just to give an opportunity to a driver who can do everything.
Because that would be a great development talent for a young. You pluck a little kid out of the development ranks. Man, getting all of that experience. You're right, because that's how you guys, yourself included in that with Kyle Larson, it is that diversity. That'd be a fun project.
Yeah, it'd be really cool, and that's kind of, I guess, where my heart's at right now. The Outlaws is really cool, though.
Yeah, no doubt. Racing against the best every night is really difficult to do. Final question for you. We had so much fun a few months ago watching you build your trophy room for the Chili Bowl. complete with a sprint car or a midget car in the middle of it. Could you imagine the reaction to that? I know Ross Weiss did a video, and you guys did a lot of social media with it. What's overall been the reaction to that, and what's the reaction now that it's wore off a little bit?
So that was great, man.
Yeah.
And honestly, once we got it done, I was afraid to put it out on social media because I didn't want to get made fun of. But I'm glad we did now because it turned out to be such a cool deal. But I'm just really proud that I can have my Chili Bowl midget there, and I can go glance at it every now and then, sit in it if I want to. And it's just, I told myself as a kid that if I ever won the Chili Bowl, I'd buy it. So I got it now, and I'm really thankful for that.
Something one for the ages, that's for sure. My favorite tweet on the whole thing was Matt Yoakum. Of course, Matt does a great job on Fox Sport. He said 2 points. A, he loves midget racing, and B, he doesn't have a wife. So your girlfriend's still all right with that in the dining room?
She eats it up.
Really?
She eats it up, yeah.
Oh my God, sounds like she might be a keeper, but I'm not going there with you. You gotta work through that yourself, but that is really cool. Christopher, thanks for your time. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
There we go. Christopher Bell joining us here on MRN's Wing Nation. Stay with us. Our Tweet Your Seat, Tweets of the Week, and a whole lot more coming up.